Hey team, Oscar here from the Frontrunner, and this is the Novablast 6 from Asics. The Novablast series is all about making sure it can do everything. It's your general jack of all trades inside of your shoe rotation, and Novablast 6 sure doesn't disappoint. The Asics Novablast 5 was the most logged shoe on Strava for 2025, and Asics build on the heritage and the legacy left behind from versions 1 through 5 with some subtle but necessary changes to continue the evolution. As Asics continue to use midsole materials outside of EVA, we get our first look at a POE material, a polyolefin elastomer, which by all intents and purposes is very similar to EVA, but we are able to make it a little more durable. It's a little more resilient when it's blowing up to the state in which it is in this Novablast, and it will make sure that it couples better with the aliphatic TPU that we see in the pod and the forefoot of this one. For me, the Novablast 6 has become more of what the brief should have been. It is an absolute jack of all trades, stacked enough and cushioned enough for those long marathon training runs. The introduction of the aliphatic TPU pod in the forefoot makes it feel more lively. It's going to feel better for those tempo runs or shorter interval sessions, and it is most definitely comfortable enough for a Monday shoe when you are a little beat up from those long runs and workouts in the weekend. Asics have also tweaked the geometry in the midsole as well as the foam. They've increased some sidewalls, and you will notice that if you look down the back of the shoe, the medial heel rear foot is slightly higher than the lateral, meaning that on that initial impact, you will get slightly more stability through that medial side. I definitely still put this one firmly in the neutral category, but Asics have tried to make this a little more democratic for a wider use case. The midsole material and the way that it is put together is a good reminder that subtle changes in the geometry, the resin used in the raw materials, and the way it is coated on the outside can change the way that it deforms under load. So as you put pressure on that midsole, the way the Asics have set this one up is you should get a little bit more use out of it, and it should be a little more stable, particularly in that fully loaded stance phase of gait. The addition of the aliphatic TPU pod in the forefoot does make toe off far more smoother as you climb your way out of stance and into that push off phase. It does feel a lot more responsive than version 5, where the feedback we had, and definitely what I thought, was it did feel ever so slightly mushy. Asics have added more rubber to the outsole, particularly in the medial and lateral sides of the rear and midfoot. This will aid in a little bit more torsional stiffness, again increasing some of that stability. We do see a little bit more in through the forefoot, trying to increase durability. The new engineered woven mesh of the Novablast 6 is perfectly comfortable. The forefoot and the midfoot is generous in its width, although it will come in 2 widths for both men and women. The fit itself, I found that to be my usual Asics 8.5. The stack heights for the Asics Novablast 6 vary slightly between the men's and women's. Men's coming in at a 41.5mm in the heel and 33.5mm in the forefoot. The women's 40.5mm in the heel and 32.5 in the forefoot. Overall, I think the Asics Novablast 6 far better represents the brief of what I believe the shoe should be. It is a complete jack of all trades. The update to the feel of the midsole, slight tweaks in the raw materials and the way that that foam is put together, the introduction of the pod and the forefoot, the new woven engineered mesh upper, the very comfortable heel counter, and the slightly less aggressive toe spring mean that this fits firmly in for someone who wants a shoe that does a little bit of everything. The Asics Novablast 6 is going to come in at 300 New Zealand dollars. It's going to be available in 2 widths for both men and women, a variety of colours, and you'll find yours from the 28th of July 2026 in store and online.